On chosen one. Something in the unseen just paused to let this message reach you, and that pause is not without purpose. This is not a moment you arrived at casually. There is a divine awareness surrounding your life right now, as if heaven itself has leaned in to acknowledge what you have carried, what you have endured, and what you refuse to abandon. You may have thought your quiet obedience went unnoticed, that your hidden battles were unseen, but nothing escapes the eyes of God. As it is written in 1 Samuel chapter 16, the Lord looks not at the outward appearance, but at the heart. Anointed one. There has been a testing season behind you, one that did not announce itself with titles or recognition. It came in silence, in delay, in moments where giving up would have been easier than holding on. Yet you remained, not perfectly, but faithfully. And now something is shifting. This message has found you because heaven has already responded to your endurance. What you passed was not about performance, but posture. Not about what you displayed publicly, but who you remained privately. If this speaks to your spirit, stay connected so you don't miss what is being revealed next, because what follows will show you why your faith has just unlocked something far greater than you expected. Chosen one. There is something heaven wants to settle in your spirit right now before anything else moves forward. What you have carried, what you have endured, what you have chosen in moments when no one was watching it, has already reached the throne. Not one act of quiet obedience was overlooked. Not one hidden tear was dismissed. There is a record in heaven that carries your name, and today that record is being opened not for judgment, but for recognition. Anointed one, you may have questioned whether it was worth it. You may have had nights where you lay there in silence, wondering if staying faithful in small things would ever matter. You kept showing up when there was no applause. You kept believing when there was no visible change, and in those moments it felt like nothing was happening, but something was happening. Heaven was watching your response. There is a kind of testing that does not feel like a test. It feels like delay. It feels like being overlooked. It feels like doors closing without explanation. It feels like giving your best to people who did not return it. It feels like praying and hearing nothing back. And if you are honest, there were moments when it almost broke you. Not because you lost your faith, but because you were carrying it alone. But listen carefully, chosen one, that was never abandonment. That was examination. There are seasons where God does not speak loudly because he is watching deeply, not to catch you failing, but to reveal who you are becoming. The wilderness you walked through was not a punishment zone. It was a proving ground. And the question was never, can you perform? The question was always, will your heart stay aligned when nothing around you feels aligned? Maybe you remember those moments, when you were misunderstood and chose silence instead of retaliation, when you were overlooked and chose humility instead of bitterness, when the opportunity you prayed for slipped through your hands and instead of walking away, you leaned in closer to God. Those were not random life events. Those were answers being written. Heaven does not grade by comfort. Heaven grades by character. And you, chosen one, you passed, not because everything was easy, not because you never struggled, but because in the middle of the struggle you did not disconnect. You stayed. You endured. You held on to something deeper than emotion. You held on to trust. There is a verse in 1 Peter chapter 1 that speaks about faith being tested like gold in fire. And what most people do not understand is that fire does not destroy gold, it reveals it. It burns away what does not belong so that what is real can shine. That is what this season did to you. It did not break you, it revealed you. You may have felt like you were losing pieces of yourself, but what was really happening was refinement. Old fears, old dependencies, old expectations, they were being stripped away, and what remained was something stronger, something quieter, something unshakable, a faith that is not loud but deep, and heaven recognizes that kind of faith. The world may have seen you struggling. They may have seen inconsistency, pressure, maybe even moments where you seemed uncertain. But heaven saw something different. Heaven saw surrender. Heaven saw you choosing God when it was inconvenient. Heaven saw you staying when it would have been easier to leave. That is the battle most people never see. The battle of the heart. You did not win because everything around you changed. You won because you refused to let your heart change in the wrong direction. And that is what moved heaven. There is something sacred about a person who remains faithful in obscurity, when no one is clapping, when no one is affirming, when no one even knows what you are carrying, and yet you still choose obedience. That kind of heart cannot be manufactured. It can only be formed through pressure. And now something is shifting. Because heaven does not test without intention, and heaven does not observe without response. There comes a moment when the testing season reaches its limit. When the question has been answered, when the heart has been revealed. And in that moment, heaven does not stay silent anymore. It begins to move. Chosen one. You are standing at that moment. You are stepping out of a season where everything felt hidden into a season where what was hidden begins to speak. But before the doors open, before the recognition comes, before the visible shift happens, heaven wants you to understand this one thing clearly. You were never being ignored. You were being trusted. And what comes next will only make sense when you fully realize why you had to go through what you went through. Chosen one, there is a weight to what you just came through that you may not fully understand yet. Not a weight meant to crush you, but a weight that was shaping you, stretching you, preparing you to carry something greater than what your past version of yourself could hold. Because what God is about to release into your life is not light. It requires capacity, it requires stability, it requires a heart that has already been proven in private before it is trusted in public. And that is why the process felt so long. You thought you were waiting on answers, but in reality, heaven was waiting on alignment. There were things that had to be settled inside of you before certain doors could safely open. Not because God was withholding from you, but because he was protecting what was meant for you from being mishandled by a version of you that was still being refined. Anointed one, there is a difference between wanting something and being ready for it. And heaven does not respond to desire alone. Heaven responds to readiness. That is why the test focused on your heart, not your ability to speak well, not your ability to perform, not even your ability to succeed outwardly. The test went deeper. It reached into your motives, your intentions, your quiet decisions when no one else was around to validate you. Because what God places in your hands next must be sustained by who you are, not just what you can do. There were moments when you could have taken shortcuts. Moments when you could have compromised just a little to make things easier. Moments when choosing your own way would have given you faster results. But you didn't. And maybe no one noticed that choice. Maybe no one celebrated that restraint, but heaven recorded it. Every time you chose integrity over convenience, it was seen. Every time you chose patience over control, it was seen. Every time you chose to remain soft when life was trying to harden you, it was seen. And those decisions became evidence. There is a story in Genesis chapter 22 where Abraham is asked to give up the very promise he had been waiting for. And what many people miss is that God never intended to take Isaac from him. The request was never about the outcome. It was about the heart behind the response. Would Abraham still trust God when it didn't make sense? Would he still obey when the cost felt too high? Would he still choose God when the promise itself was on the line? Chosen one, that is the same place you stood in. Not with the same circumstances, but with the same question echoing through your spirit. When things did not unfold the way you expected, did you still trust? When the timeline stretched longer than you planned, did you still believe? When the cost became uncomfortable, did you still stay committed? And your life answered. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but truthfully, yes. And that yes carried more weight than you realize. Because in the kingdom, obedience is not measured by how easy it looks. It is measured by how costly it feels. And the more it costs you to stay aligned, the more it reveals the depth of your devotion. You proved something in that season. You proved that your relationship with God was not based on what He gives, but on who He is. That your faith was not dependent on constant confirmation, but rooted in conviction. That your obedience was not temporary, but covenantal. And that changes everything. Because now heaven is not just looking at you as someone who desires blessing. Heaven is looking at you as someone who can be trusted with it. There is a shift that happens when trust is established. Before you were asking God to open doors. Now God is preparing to give you access. Before you were hoping for opportunities. Now opportunities are being aligned for you. Before you were trying to prove yourself. Now heaven is ready to position you. But understand this, chosen one, the elevation that is coming is not just about what you will receive, it is about what you will carry. There are people connected to your next season that will be impacted by your obedience. There are doors that will open not just for your benefit, but for purpose. There are moments ahead where what you learned in silence will guide you in visibility. That is why your process could not be rushed, because what you are stepping into requires more than talent. It requires maturity. And that maturity was formed in the very moments you thought were setbacks. Those quiet seasons, they trained your discernment. Those delays, they built your endurance. Those disappointments, they deepened your dependence on God. Nothing was wasted. Even the moments that felt like loss were actually positioning. Even the doors that closed were redirecting. Even the people who walked away were creating space. And now you are standing in a place where things may still look uncertain on the outside, but something inside of you knows that a shift is happening. You can feel it, not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply, like something is settling, like something is aligning, like something's about to move. And you are right, because the same hand that allowed the testing is now preparing the lifting. The same God who watched you in hidden places is now about to move in visible ways. But before that unfolds, there is something even more important you need to understand, because what you experienced was not just a test of endurance, it was a test of who you would become when God felt silent. Chosen one. There is a dimension of testing that does not come with noise warnings or visible signs. It comes in silence. And if you have walked through that kind of season, then you already know silence can feel heavier than opposition, because at least when there's resistance, you know something is happening. But when heaven goes quiet, it can make you question everything. There were moments when you prayed and felt nothing return. Moments when you searched for confirmation and found only stillness. Moments when you wondered if God had stepped back, if somehow you had missed something, done something, or fallen out of alignment without realizing it. And that weight, that uncertainty, it pressed on you in ways that no one around you could fully understand. But hear this clearly, anointed one, silence is not absence. There are seasons where God becomes quiet, not because He has withdrawn, but because He is watching your response without constant reassurance. Not to see you fail, but to reveal the depth of your trust, because there is a level of faith that only develops when you cannot trace Him, but you still choose to trust Him. You lived that. There were days when you did not feel strong, days when your prayers were not polished, when your words were simple, sometimes even broken, but you still reached. You still turned toward God, even when your emotions were telling you to shut down. That is not small. That is not ordinary. That is faith under pressure. There is a moment in the life of Job where he says, even when he cannot perceive God, he knows that God sees him, and that after the testing he will come forth as gold. That is not the language of someone who feels everything clearly. That is the language of someone who has decided to trust beyond feeling. And that is exactly what you did. The real test was never just about endurance. It was about identity. Who are you when nothing around you confirms what you believe? Who are you when the promise feels distant, when the answers feel delayed, when the clarity you once had seems to fade? In those moments, many people disconnect. Many people allow disappointment to redefine their faith. But you didn't. Even when you were tired, you stayed. Even when you were confused, you stayed. Even when you were hurting, you stayed. And heaven saw that. Every quiet "I still trust you" that you whispered it carried weight. Every decision to not walk away, even when it would have been easier, it carried weight. Every moment you chose to keep your heart open instead of shutting it down, it carried weight. You may not have realized it, but your silence was speaking. It was speaking louder than words in the courts of heaven. There is something powerful about a person who continues to honor God when life does not feel honorable, who continues to believe when the evidence is not visible, who continues to worship not because everything is going right, but because they have decided that God is still worthy regardless. That kind of heart cannot be shaken easily. And that is why heaven is responding now, because what you demonstrated was not surface-level faith. It was rooted faith, the kind that does not collapse under pressure, the kind that does not disappear in discomfort, the kind that holds on even when it does not understand. That is rare, and heaven recognizes it. Many people measure success by what they can see. Progress results visible change, but in the kingdom, obedience is success. Alignment is success. Staying connected when it is difficult is success. And you succeeded. You did not fail because things were delayed. You did not fail because doors did not open immediately. You did not fail because you struggled. You passed because you stayed. That is the difference. And now, something is shifting because of that. The silence that once felt empty is now becoming evidence. Evidence that your faith was not dependent on constant reinforcement. Evidence that your relationship with God is not built on convenience. Evidence that your heart is anchored deeper than circumstances. That kind of foundation changes what God can entrust to you. Because when a person has proven that they will remain faithful in silence, they can be trusted in noise. When a person has proven that they will stay grounded in hidden places, they can be positioned in visible ones without losing themselves. That is what is happening. You are not just coming out of a hard season, you are coming out of a proving season. And that means the next phase will not look like the last. There is a release attached to what you have just walked through, not because you demanded it, but because you became ready for it. Chosen one. You may start to notice subtle changes, a shift in how you think, a clarity that begins to return, opportunities that feel different, conversations that carry weight, doors that begin to respond. Do not ignore that. Those are signals that the same God who allowed the silence is now initiating movement. But as this begins to unfold, there is something you must hold on to, because the next level is not just about what you receive, it is about how you carry it. And what you learned in silence will be the very thing that sustains you when everything begins to move. Chosen one. As the movement begins and things start to shift around you, there is a truth you must anchor deeply in your spirit. What is coming next is not separate from what you have been through. It is the result of it. Nothing in your past season was disconnected. Nothing was random. Every moment of pressure, every delay, every silent battle was building the foundation for what you are now stepping into. Because elevation in the kingdom is not given to impress people, it is given to fulfill purpose. And purpose requires weight. There is a scripture in James chapter 1 that speaks about the one who perseveres under trial, receiving a crown of life. And what that reveals is simple but powerful. The crown comes after the endurance. The reward comes after the resistance. The promotion comes after the proving. You are no longer in the proving stage. You are crossing into the releasing stage. But understand this clearly, anointed one, what is being released is not just external blessing, it is internal authority. It is a new level of clarity, a new depth of peace, a new strength that doesn't fluctuate with circumstances. Because the greatest reward of your testing season was not what you lost or gained externally, it was who you became internally. You became someone who cannot be easily shaken. You became someone who does not panic when things are uncertain. You became someone who's learned how to stay grounded even when life feels unstable, and that kind of stability is what carries favor well. There are people who receive opportunity but are not prepared to sustain it. There are people who step into open doors but lose themselves once they are inside. But that will not be your story, because your process did not just prepare you to receive it, prepared you to remain. That is the difference. Chosen one. What you are about to walk into will match the weight of your endurance. The nights you spent praying when no one knew they were not wasted. The moments you chose integrity when it cost you something, they were not forgotten. The times you endured misunderstanding, rejection, or delay without becoming bitter, they were not overlooked. They were investments. And now those investments are about to return, not always in the way you expected, but in the way that aligns with your purpose. You may find that doors begin to open that you did not even knock on. You may find that your name comes up in rooms you have never entered. You may find that things begin to align without the same level of struggle you once experienced. That is not coincidence. That is response. Because there is a principle in the kingdom that cannot be broken. What is built in private will be revealed in public. And you built something real. You built a relationship with God that was not dependent on visibility. You built a faith that could survive silence. You built a heart that chose obedience over convenience. And now that foundation is strong enough to carry what is coming. There is also restoration attached to this season. What felt unstable will begin to stabilize. What felt delayed will begin to move. What once seemed impossible will begin to unfold in ways that no longer require constant effort to sustain. Not because life will suddenly be perfect, but because you are no longer the same person who entered the last season. You are stronger now. You are clearer now. You are more discerning now. And that changes everything. There are some things that will come back around, but this time you will recognize them differently. You will not chase what is not aligned. You will not hold on to what God is removing. You will not settle for what does not match who you have become. That is growth. And that is part of the reward, Because elevation is not just about gaining access, it is about gaining understanding. There will be moments ahead where you will look back and finally understand why certain doors did not open before, why certain connections did not last, why certain paths felt blocked. Not because you were being denied, but because you were being redirected. And now that redirection is about to make sense. Chosen one. The same hand that refined you is now the hand that will establish you. There is a settling that is coming over your life, a sense of stability that you have not felt in a long time. Not based on circumstances, but based on alignment, a knowing that you are exactly where you need to be, even if everything is not fully revealed yet. That is peace, and that peace will guide you. Because as things begin to open, not everything will require your effort. Some things will simply require your agreement. Your willingness to walk through what God is placing in front of you without hesitation, without overthinking, without fear. You have already proven your heart. Now you are learning to walk in what that proof has unlocked. And this is where many people miss it. They ask for elevation, but when it comes, they shrink back because it feels unfamiliar. They question it because it does not look like what they expected. They hesitate because they are still carrying the mindset of the previous season. But you cannot carry the mindset of survival into a season of establishment. You have to allow yourself to step into this new space fully, to receive what God is doing without guilt, to walk forward without second-guessing your worthiness. Because you are not stepping into this because you earned it through perfection, you are stepping into it because you were faithful through the process. And heaven has already made its decision. You are approved. You are trusted. You are ready. And what comes next will not only confirm what you have been through, it will reveal why you had to go through it in the first place. Chosen one. Now you are standing at the edge of something that once felt far away, a moment where what you endured begins to speak for you. Not with noise, not with force, but with undeniable evidence that something in your life has shifted. This is not just a continuation of your story. This is the transition point. The place where testing becomes testimony, where hidden faith becomes visible fruit. And heaven is not uncertain about you. The verdict has already been released. You passed. Not because you were flawless, not because you never questioned, not because you always felt strong, but because your heart remained anchored. Because when everything around you tried to pull you away, something within you held firm. And that is what heaven was watching all along. There is a scripture in Psalm 24 that asks, "Who may ascend the hill of the Lord?" And the answer is simple, the one with clean hands and a pure heart. Not a perfect life, not a flawless record, but a heart that has been refined, motives that have been sifted, a spirit that has chosen alignment over time. That is who you have become. You may not have noticed it while you were walking through it. Growth rarely feels like growth in the moment. It feels like pressure. It feels like confusion. It feels like stretching beyond what is comfortable. But now, as you look back, you can begin to see it. You are not who you used to be. The things that once shook you no longer have the same hold. The thoughts that once controlled you no longer carry the same weight. The fears that once limited you no longer define your decisions. That is transformation. And that transformation is what qualifies you for what is coming. Chosen. 1. This next season carries 3 things that will begin to unfold in your life: restoration, recognition, and revelation. Restoration, because there are areas of your life that felt broken, delayed, or disconnected. And now God is bringing alignment back into those spaces. Not always by restoring things exactly as they were, but by restoring what was necessary for your purpose to move forward. Recognition, because what you carried in private will no longer remain hidden. Not for your ego, not for applause, but because your life has become a testimony. People will begin to see something different in you. Not just what you do, but how you carry yourself, how you respond, how you move with quiet confidence. And revelation, because clarity is coming. Things that once confused you will begin to make sense. Paths that once seemed blocked will reveal their purpose. Moments that once felt like loss will show themselves as positioning. This is the unfolding. And as it unfolds, there will also be responsibility. Because what God is placing in your hands is not just for you. It is meant to flow through you, to impact others, to open doors for people connected to your life, to bring light into spaces that have been waiting for someone who carries what you now carry. That is why your process was so intentional, because what you hold now cannot be handled carelessly. It requires awareness, it requires humility, it requires continued alignment. But here is the beauty of it: you have already been trained. Everything you learned in silence will guide you in visibility. Everything you practiced in hidden places will sustain you in open spaces. Everything that was built inside of you will now support what is being placed around you. You are not stepping into this unprepared. You are stepping into this equipped. And there is something else heaven wants to break off of you right now: any lingering thought that you are not enough. That voice that tries to remind you of your past, that whisper that tells you you are too late, that feeling that says you have missed your moment, that is not truth. That is residue from a season you have already passed. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not forgotten. You are positioned right on time, because divine timing does not follow human expectation. It follows alignment. And now that alignment has been established, things will begin to move with a different kind of flow. Not forced, not rushed, but intentional. You will notice it in small ways at first. A door opening that once stayed closed. A conversation that leads somewhere unexpected. A sense of peace where anxiety used to live. These are not random occurrences. They are confirmations. Confirmations that the shift is real. Confirmations that heaven is active. Confirmations that what you went through produced something eternal. Chosen one. This is your moment to step forward without hesitation, to receive without resistance, to walk without fear. Not because you have everything figured out, but because you trust the one who has led you this far. You did not survive that season just to return to the same place. You were brought through it to step into something greater, and now that moment is here. Your story is shifting, your name is being mentioned, your path is being cleared, and heaven is not whispering anymore, it is declaring. Well done, faithful one. Now step into what your obedience has unlocked. Chosen one, receive this moment with reverence, because what has been spoken over your life is not temporary encouragement, it is divine confirmation. You are not leaving this word the same way you entered it. Something has been sealed in your spirit, a knowing, a quiet certainty, that what you walked through was not wasted, and what is ahead is already aligned. Heaven has seen your heart, and heaven has responded. Anointed one, as you step forward from here, walk with awareness, walk with peace. Walk knowing that the same God who tested you is now establishing you. What once felt uncertain will begin to stabilize. What once felt delayed will begin to unfold. Stay faithful, stay grounded, and stay aligned with His presence. If this word has settled deeply within you, I pass the test in the comments as your declaration of agreement. And remain connected so you do not miss the messages that are meant to guide you in this next season. May peace guard your heart, may clarity guide your steps, and may every door ordained for you open in divine timing. Your next chapter has already begun.